Ahora voy a pasar a explicar específicamente la dinámica que vamos a tener. Tenemos un día con una agenda bastante intensa, ya a partir de mañana empieza a ser un poquito más liviana, pero hoy vamos a tratar de sacar bastante provecho em, de las distintas actividades que tenemos planeadas. Bueno, es bastante simple lo que viene, ¿eh? Como decía, el foco de este primer bloque es la inversión. Y tenemos la suerte, la alegría de tener a varios fondos de inversión, aceleradoras, con mucha actividad muy importante en distintos países de las Américas, en el sur, en Centroamérica. Agradecemos mucho la presencia de Ariadne, de Carlos, Vladimir por allá, Carolina. eh, Se me está pasando alguien. Luis y José, muchísimas gracias. En fin, todos quienes nos acompañan en este inicio. Vamos a tener una presentación muy breve de cada uno, y perdón, Teresita y el equipo de BitLab que están participando virtualmente. Vamos a tener un primer panel con una presentación bastante
The
breve
first
de
panel
cada
with
uno
a
de los
brief
fondos,
introduction of each of the
aceleradoras, incubadores,
accelerators and
que nos van a
incubators
contar
that
básicamente
will
quiénes
tell us
son, qué
basically who
hacen, qué
they
están
are, what
ofreciendo.
they do, what they are offering.
Eso va a comenzar ahora
That
mismo,
will
lo va a
begin right
moderar
now. This
Mariana
will be
Vasconcelos, una
moderated by
amiga de la
Mariana
casa, a
Vasconcelos,
quien apreciamos
an
mucho,
in-house friend
asesora
whom we
de nuestro programa de
appreciate very much,
digitalización agroalimentaria desde el inicio,
basically
y
the
además de
advisor
eso,
for our
muchísimas cosas más,
agro-digitalization
entre
project
ellas la
right from the
fundadora de
beginning,
AgroSmart,
and the
una de las
founder of
startups
AgroSmart,
de
one
Brasil,
of the
Mariana
startups
Brasilera,
in
ahora se va a
Brazil.
presentar ella con más
Mariana
detalle, para los más
Brasileiros will
interesantes y
introduce
pujantes que
herself.
hemos visto en los últimos
Outstanding
años.
efforts made lately.
Entonces vamos a tener ese panel,
So we have that
ni bien yo
panel.
termine con esta introducción, y después vamos a
And
tener,
then,
como dije ayer,
as I
una
said
actividad
yesterday, there will be
acotada solo
an
a
activity
fondos y
limited or
startups,
focused only
¿m?
on
En el
startups
que
and
va a
funds.
haber
There will
reuniones o
be
conversaciones
meetings
bilaterales
or
entre
bilateral
un fondo y una
conversations
startup,
between a
y
fund
vamos a
and
ir
a startup,
rotando,
and we will rotate
para que distintas
so
startups
that the
hablen
different
con distintos
startups
fondos.
can talk to different
O quizás,
funds,
mejor dicho,
or
para que distintos
so that
fondos
different
hablen con
funds
distintas
instead
startups,
can
porque hay
talk to
muchas más
startups,
startups
because there
que
are many
fondos.
more
Eso
startups
lo va a
than funds.
facilitar Paula
And that
Amador.
will be
Muchas gracias, Paula,
facilitated
por
by
estar acá en
Paula
nombre de
Amador.
Endeavor,
Thank you
Endeavor
for being
Argentina,
here
con quien
on
venimos
behalf of
trabajando
Endeavor
mucho
Argentina,
y quien coordinó toda
with whom
esta
we have
actividad.
been
Lamentablemente
coordinating this
teníamos un
activity.
fondo más, que es
Unfortunately, there
Data
was
Fund,
one more
que
fund,
tuvo que
data fund,
cancelar
that had
hace
to
un rato nada más su
cancel
participación
not
aquí.
long ago their
Pedimos
participation. So
disculpas
we
junto con Endeavor
apologize together with
a aquellos
Endeavor to
emprendedores quien
those
tenían acordada una
startups that
cita
had
con Data Fund,
agreed
porque lamentablemente no la vamos
an
a poder
appointment
tener, no
with
la van
Data
a poder
Fund
tener porque la persona de
because
Data Fund no va a
the
estar
person
presente,
from Data Fund will not
pero
be
sí
present.
vamos a hacer el link
But we
correspondiente
will
para que esa reunión pueda
develop a link so
mantenerse
that the
en
meeting
algún
can be
momento
scheduled at some other point
de
in
aquí en
time.
adelante, ¿no? Fundamentalmente hoy las conversaciones que
The
pueda haber entre las
for
startups
today
y los
between
fondos son
startups
bien
and
cortas,
funds
son
are
para tener
very
una primera
brief, yeah,
aproximación, lo más
just to
jugoso puede venir
uh,
después.
uh,
Entonces, si bien sería lo
get
ideal
to
que
know
Data
each
haya podido
other,
estar
and then
aquí,
the juicy part
de
can
todas
come
maneras
later.
ese rol de
But
hacer link
anyway, that
entre un
role of
fondo y una startup
developing
va
a link
a
or a
ocurrir,
bridge
¿eh?
between
Pedimos
startups
disculpas
and
por eso.
investment funds
Les pedimos a
is
los
very
emprendedores que
important.
están anotados para
And
tener citas
those
con los fondos que
startups
estén
that have
atentos
these
a sus
appointments,
WhatsApp, porque
keep an
es
eye on your WhatsApp,
un esfuerzo de
because
coordinación
this is
bastante
a
importante terminar
significant
una reunión, que
coordination to
empiece
end one
otra,
meeting
entonces
and
les
to
vamos a
start
ir
the next
avisando por
one.
WhatsApp
So we will let
con
you
el
know
trabajo de
via
Paula,
WhatsApp
que
with
no
the
sé cómo
support
hace
of
para
Paula. I
coordinar
don't know
eso,
how she's going to do that,
para
but
ir
anyway,
avisándoles cuándo
to
les
let you
toca cada
know
cita,
when
¿eh?
each of your appointments
Igual vamos a
will
estar
take
todos
place.
pendientes y vamos
We
a
will
tratar
all
de llevar,
participate. Feel free,
salir de la sala,
leave the
tener
meeting
conversaciones
room,
fuera de
have
la sala con
conversations
agenda
outside the
libre
meeting rooms,
mientras
an
ocurren
open
aquí las
agenda,
citas entre los
while we have
emprendedores y
the
las startups. Necesitamos
appointments
que haya
here
relativo
between
silencio
the
para que puedan
startups
tener estas
and
conversaciones. Entonces,
the
si
investment
quieren
funds.
conversar, quienes no son
If you
fondos ni
want to have
startups, si quieren tener reuniones,
a
los
personal
invitamos a que lo hagan
conversation
en
with
el resto del
someone else,
predio de
please
LIDA,
go out
¿eh?
to the rest of the facilities or property outside,
Bueno,
please.
creo que nada más.
I believe that is all.
Carlos, Alicia, si me pueden apuntar algo que me esté olvidando, pues
Could
ya.
you remind me of anything I've forgotten, Carlos?
No, simplemente que
No,
también estará
simply
disponible el
that
coffee break a
the
partir
coffee
de las
break will
9:20
available
abajo en el
as of
lobby. Entonces,
9:20
para
at the
aquellos que
lobby.
quieran
For
intercambiar
those
ahí,
that
estará
want to
ese espacio
exchange
disponible y
views,
si
those
quieren de
will be
alguna
available.
sala o algo también
And if you
pueden hablar con
need a little
nosotros.
meeting room, let us know.
Gracias, Carlos, me estaba olvidando de eso.
Okay, I was
Y para
forgetting that.
fondos y
Forgetting
startups
that.
que van a
Okay,
estar
for
aquí
funds
por
and
un tiempo
startups
más,
that
porque las
will
reuniones van a
remain here
llevar un poco más de tiempo, tranquilos,
longer,
también va a haber un coffee break
there will be
un poquito
coffee
más tarde,
break
vamos a
a bit
guardar para que
later,
nadie se quede
and
sin coffee break.
we will ensure no one
Sin más
is
que
left
esto,
without any coffee.
Marian, te invito
Marian, so
y
I
bueno,
invite you now
también a el resto de fondos
and the
y
rest of the
aceleradoras a que pasen
funds and
aquí.
accelerators. I invite you to
Carolina,
come
Carlos,
forward.
José,
Carolina, Carlos,
bueno, Tere y
Jose,
equipo están
Tere.
conectados de modo virtual.
Well, the others are connected
Vladimir,
virtually.
gracias.
Vladimir.
Bueno, primeramente un gusto
Well,
estar acá
hello.
con
It is a
todos ustedes.
pleasure, first of all,
Admiro
to be
mucho
here
ese
with you.
trabajo que
I
ICA
admire
viene
the work
haciendo,
that ICA has
haciendo
been doing,
alianzas, creando
building
ecosistemas
bridges,
que seguramente
creating
va a retornar mucho
ecosystems
para
that
todos
will be a
nosotros
big
como negocios,
return
sea las artes o
of
los fondos, pero
business
también para que
for all of
avancemos
us.
la agenda
And so
de
that we can
transición de
push forward with
agricultura,
the
seguridad alimentaria.
food
Voy a
security
pasar la palabra para que cada
agenda.
fondo se
I will
presente
offer the floor
y
for
como
each fund
emprendedora que tiene
to
bastante
introduce itself.
experiencia levantando plata y dos socios acá, el BID y también SB
Looking
Ventures, me gustaría de pedir que
at
además de que
all
presenten
the
el portafolio,
participants,
la idea del fondo,
aside from
nos haga
presenting your
información intangibles de
portfolio, give
cómo
us
los
some
emprendedores que están acá
information how
deben
the
o no deben
startups
buscar a ustedes.
should
O
or
sea,
not
¿cuál es la tesis de inversión que
look
están
for
mirando
you.
en este momento?
What are
Seguramente
your
algunos ya tuvieron
objectives?
fondo uno,
Perhaps
dos, tres, y eso
somebody has already
cambia a lo
had a
largo del
1, 2, or
tiempo.
3 fund
En
for
qué
second or
estadio de
third, and
compañías
this
invierten, es
changes
pre-seed,
over
es seed, es
time.
Series A, el tamaño del cheque y un
The,
poquito de cómo toman sus
and a bit of
decisiones, cómo es
how
el
they make their
proceso de
decisions,
evaluar la
what the
startup y
process of
garantizar el cheque.
evaluating the startup is all about.
Vamos a empezar acá
Let us
con
begin
Bruno
over
Sánchez.
here with our colleague here.
Gracias. ¿Qué tal? Buenos días.
Thank
Un
you. Good
gusto
morning. It
saludarles,
is a pleasure
agradecer
to
al
greet
ICA
you.
por
I
este
would like to
espacio
thank ICA
tan
for this
importante
very
de
important opportunity
compartir
to
experiencias,
share
conocimiento, pero
experiences
sobre
and
todo hacer
knowledge and
networking,
expertise,
que
and
es
particularly do the
probablemente de lo
networking
más
side,
valioso que
which
se
is
hace acá.
perhaps what
Tal
is
vez
most
podemos poner la
valuable in all of
presentación
this. Perhaps someone
que
could
teníamos por ahí.
help me with
Tengo
the
unos cuantos
presentation.
slides nada más
It's just a few
para
slides,
que me
don't worry,
guíen
just to guide me
en lo que quería compartir
in
con
what I want
ustedes
to share
y
with you.
no se me olvide nada importante
So I do
de
not
esta
forget
presentación.
anything very important about this
Brumas Venture
presentation.
Capital es un fondo
Brumas Venture
nuevo
Capital
que
is a new
estamos
fund
lanzando este
we are
año
launching this year.
y nos enfocamos
We
en,
focus
vamos
on,
a ver si esto
let me see if
camina
this can click forward.
o tal vez si
Well,
lo pasamos allá.
maybe someone can help me. Click forward.
Ok,
Okay,
ahí está.
there we go.
Entonces, somos, como les digo, un
As
fondo
I said, we
relativamente
are a
nuevo,
relatively new
aunque
fund.
para los que estamos acá ya
Although
tenemos
those of us
casi 3 décadas de
here
estar
have
trabajando
been working
en temas de
in
inversión
matters of
y financiamiento en estas
investment and
actividades.
funding in these
Lo
activities
estamos
for almost
lanzando como
3
un fondo
decades, but we
regional,
are launching this as a
arrancando
regional
con
fund, starting up
su primera emisión,
with
que
the
es el
first
Brumas 1, un
issuance
fondo
of
de
Brumas
50
1,
millones de dólares
$50
invirtiendo en
million,
startups,
investing in
específicamente en agri-food
specific
tech. No nos
agri-food tech
movemos
startups.
de esta
We are
línea,
not
de este
going to move
sector,
out of this
que
line
en
for the
etapas de
time being,
crecimiento en
that
Centroamérica y
are
República
precisely
Dominicana.
growing in
Entonces, no
Central
estamos
America
en
and the
etapas
Dominican
tempranas, sino
Republic.
más bien en etapas
These
un
are not
poquito más
early
consolidadas
phases. We are, in
de
fact, in more
empresas,
consolidated phases of
específicamente que estén
businesses,
vinculando la vertical
particularly
técnica de
linking
tecnología dentro de sus procesos
technology
productivos.
and their
Nos
productive
enfocamos, por ende,
processes.
entonces,
We
desde
focus,
pre-seed hasta
therefore, on the
Serie A, nos
pre-seed
movemos en ese
until
ámbito
Series A.
de acción.
We work in that
Y
area of
lo que sí
action.
estamos procurando
And what we
generar
are
es
striving to generate
hacer un deployment, una
is
entrega de
a
capital
deployment,
inteligente, de smart
smart
capital.
capital.
Esto viene en donde además del
This
recurso de
comes where,
inversión
aside
que
from the
colocamos,
investment
estamos
resources
procurando
we provide,
apoyar
we want to
con
support
el networking
through
que ya de todas formas estamos
networking that anyway
facilitando
we
entre
are
nuestras
facilitating
empresas,
already amongst our
en algunos casos
businesses, in
coaching y
some
mentoring que se
cases
requiere para
coaching
poder
and
llevar a un
mentoring as
nivel
may be
de
needed
competitividad
to
la
uh,
incorporación de la
push
tecnología,
this
el acceso a
to a new
mercados, que
level.
muchas veces
Market
es
access
uno de los
oftentimes
principales
is one of the
limitantes
main
del productor
limiting
agrícola
factors.
como tal.
Uh,
Y
and
también dentro de ese acompañamiento traemos la
in that,
innovación y la
we also
sostenibilidad
include innovation and
para
sustainability
que podamos medir el
to
impacto
measure
de
the
las empresas.
impact of
Lo que
these
hemos hecho
businesses.
después de hacer un
So,
análisis
after
del sector en
analyzing
la
the
región
sector in the
Centroamérica y República
region of
Dominicana,
Central
identificamos
America
una
and the
triple falla de
Dominican
mercado.
Republic,
Esta triple
we
falla
came
de
across
mercado
the triple market
ha
failure,
identificado lo que ya todos sabemos,
identifying
que hay
what
un
we all
limitado
know. There is
acceso
limited access
a
to
financiamiento
financing,
para el
obviously,
productor
for
agropecuario y la productora agropecuaria.
farmers and producers.
Hay una baja
There's
penetración
a
de la
limited
tecnología
technology
en los
penetration
sistemas
in the
productivos.
productive systems.
Tenemos
And we
un sistema
have a
productivo
productive
agrícola desfasado en Centroamérica y en República Dominicana.
agricultural system that is
Hay
disconnected
la
in
tercer
Central America and the
elemento dentro de esta
Dominican
triple falla de
Republic.
mercado es que hay una desconexión
And
entre la
this has led
limitada inversión que
to
está
a
llegando a la región
disconnect
para los sistemas
between the
alimentarios
investment coming
y la
to the
vinculación con la
region
tecnología y
and
la
its
innovación.
link to
Entonces,
technology and
lo que hemos
innovation.
determinado, y
So
esto
what
nos
we have
llevó a
determined,
establecer
and
este
this
fondo,
had
es
led
bueno,
us to
cómo
establish
podemos
this fund, is to
hacer para hacer un aporte
decide
directo
how we could
para que
contribute
el sector
directly so
agrícola, el
that
sector
the
agropecuario
agriculture
pueda
sector
llegar a cumplir
could really
la demanda que está teniendo
satisfy
de
the
más y
demand
mejores alimentos.
for
Pero hay
more
otras
and better
variables que también
food
nos afectan
products.
aquí
And there are other
en el
variables,
sector.
however, that affect us in the sector.
Evidentemente,
Evidently,
todos lo sabemos, hay
as we well know,
en promedio un
in average,
25% de la fuerza
25%
laboral de
of
la
the
región
workforce in the
está en el
region
campo,
is
está en el
out
agro,
in the
está en la zona
field, in
rural de
agriculture, in
estos
the
8
rural
países de la
areas
región.
of these 8 countries of the region.
Sin embargo, hay un
However,
ensanchamiento de la brecha
there's
generacional. También lo hemos hablado aquí en
a
estos días,
growing
¿verdad? Cada
generational
vez
gap.
más el campo se nos está haciendo viejo.
The field
Las
is
nuevas
getting
generaciones
older
están
and older.
migrando
The
hacia
rural
nuevas
areas,
áreas
the youth are
de conocimiento, hacia nuevas carreras, y
basically
no están
seeking new
entrando
careers
a mantenerse
in the
en
cities
la agricultura.
without
Entonces estamos
remaining in
viendo cómo, y
agriculture.
creemos que incorporando tecnología podemos
And we believe that through
atraer a
technology,
esas
we
nuevas
can attract
generaciones.
these newer
Y bueno, lo que
generations
hemos
back
hablado
to
del
the rural
cambio
areas.
climático, etcétera.
And climate change, as we have already
Me voy a
mentioned.
brincar muy rápidamente esto porque
Let
ya
me
lo hemos hablado.
quickly
Hay una
skip through this,
oportunidad
skim through
enorme de
this.
mercado.
There's a
En
huge
el
market
2023,
opportunity
el
in
agri-food tech, la
2023.
industria,
Agri-food tech
tenía
industry had
15.5 billones de dólares. Esperamos
$15.5
que para
billion.
el
We hope that
2032, según estudios,
by 2032,
este sector
according to
crezca a
IDB
57
studies, we
billones de dólares.
expect
Entonces hay
it to
un
reach
enorme requerimiento de
57 billion.
inversión
And this
en eso.
requires a big investment.
El sistema agroalimentario y la
The agri-food
participación
system and
de los agri-food techs en
participation
el
of
sistema
agri-food
alimentario va
techs
desde la
in the
granja
food,
hasta el plato,
this
hasta el
farm
consumidor
to
final.
plate,
Y aquí
basically,
es lo que nos ha permitido nosotros determinar
and
qué
consumer.
sectores estamos
And
interesados en
these
apoyar.
are
No
the
me voy a entrar
sectors we are
en detalles
interested
porque
in
también de hecho lo pueden ver luego
helping.
en nuestra
You can
página
see
web
this in
y que los
detail
invitamos a
later. I
participar.
will not
Pero esos son
go into
los
depth
temas
here,
que
but
estamos
these
muy
are the
interesados en
areas that
invertir, ya
we
sean
are
empresas
interested
que
in
tienen
investing in,
servicios
either businesses
tecnológicos
that
para
develop
productores o
general
productores que desean
technological
incorporar
services for growers or growers that want to
la
bring
tecnología dentro de su
technology
producción
into their production chain.
agrícola. Nuestra tesis geográfica, ya les dije, ¿verdad?
As I mentioned,
Centroamérica
our
y República
geography
Dominicana.
covers Central America and the Dominican Republic.
Primer fondo
In
nos
this
estamos
first
enfocando
fund,
acá.
we are focusing on them.
La meta es
The
trabajar
goal is to
al
work
cierre del primer fondo con
to
20,
end the
30
first fund
empresas,
with
tickets que van
20,
desde los
30
100,000 hasta el
companies
millón y
with
medio de
tickets
dólares.
from 100,000 to a million
Procurando
and a
trabajar
half,
desde pre-seed hasta Serie
from
A.
pre-seed to Series A.
Un
As we said
25,
before,
35% de los
25,
recursos los vamos a
35%
reservar
of
para
these
rondas de seguimiento, apuntando
resources will
a
be
un
kept for follow-up
20, 25%
rounds, and
de
20,
tasa interna de retorno,
25% of the internal
con
rate
una
of
generación
return,
para el inversionista
and
por
a
lo menos 3
generation of
veces
investors for
el
at
valor de su
least
inversión
3 times more
en
than their
5 a 7
original
años,
investment
y
over 5
procurando
to
entonces
7 years,
salidas a través de mergers
striving
and acquisitions, fondos
mergers and
secundarios o
acquisitions,
follow-ons
secondary
dentro del
funds, or
mismo fondo.
follow-ons.
Aunque no somos un fondo de impacto,
Although
sí
we are
tenemos
not
la
an
variable de
impact fund,
impacto
we do have
y
the
queremos medirla
impact
y queremos
variable. We
también
want to
procurar
measure
darle
it, and we
a los,
want to strive
a las
to
empresas las
give
herramientas
these
para que vayan
businesses
midiendo
the
su impacto.
tools so they can
Paso esto muy
measure those
rápido.
impacts. Let me
Finalmente,
skim
¿cómo
through
tomamos
this.
la decisión? Bueno, hay una
Our
gobernanza,
decision
además de
made,
que somos
well, there's
un
governance,
limited partnership
and we are
establecido
limited
en Canadá,
partnership established in Canada
con gobernanza de grado institucional. Tenemos
with institutional
un
grade
comité de
governance.
inversión
We have an
con poder
investment
de veto,
committee
en
with the
donde
veto power.
obviamente nuestros inversionistas
Obviously, our
tienen
investors
representación dentro del comité
have
de inversión,
representation
pero
in
también
the
expertos
investment committee
técnicos
and
dentro del
technical
área de
experts
agri-food tech también
within the
participan
agri-food
ahí.
tech
Y los fundadores que también
area
apoyamos.
and the
Queremos
founders, obviously.
ofrecerles esto
We
como
would
una
like to
herramienta
offer
importante
this
para poder
as an
identificar
important tool to
recursos
identify
que
resources
catalicen el cambio
that
que sus empresas
catalyze the
están haciendo.
change
Muchas
these
gracias.
businesses are doing. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Carlos, y por ya
Thank you,
tener preparado
Carlos.
toda la información que
With
te
all
pedí.
that
Muy bien,
information,
exactamente. Bueno, ahora
Very
nos
good.
vamos con Carolina
Now
desde el Bit
we
Lab.
will hear
Y Caro,
Carolina
me
from
parece
IDB Lab.
interesante comentar
It
que
is very
el invierte
interesting to
tanto
say
como
that
equity como,
IDB
como deuda,
invests in
que tener
equity
el
as
estado
well
de la
as
compañía
debt.
también es una opción
And this is
para
a
poder arrancar el
very
crecimiento.
interesting option for startups also to kick off their activity.
Ahora sí, buenos días.
Hello,
Un
good morning.
gusto
It
y
is a
primero que
pleasure.
todo, muchas
First
gracias
of all,
por invitarnos a
thank you for
presentar
inviting us
a
to
BitLab y un
present
poquito de lo
IDB
que
Lab
hacemos en el
and a bit of what we
ecosistema
do
de
in
innovación.
the innovation
Em,
ecosystem.
Creo que por ahí ya están preparando la
I
presentación
believe the presentation
para
is
irnos
up
guiando
on the
igualmente.
screen. Okay, just to guide us, please.
Ahí estamos.
Okay, here we go.
Bueno, primero que todo, para los
First of
que
all,
nos conocen
for
tal vez
those
por
that
partes, porque el
know
BIT es
us
bastante
by
grande,
parts,
tenemos tres
IDB is
brazos
large.
con
We
los
have
cuales
three
trabajamos
branches we
distintos
work with
temas.
in different areas.
Tenemos al
We
BIT, que
have
es el que trabaja con el
IDB that
sector
works with the
público,
public
los
sector,
gobiernos,
the
hace los grandes
governments.
proyectos de
They develop
infraestructura,
large
educación, impacto
infrastructure,
en toda la
education,
región, Latinoamérica y el
projects
Caribe.
for
Tenemos BID
impact in
Invest,
Latin
que
America
es,
and the
le
Caribbean.
llamamos
IDB
desde el BIT
Invest,
Lab como nuestro hermano mayor, es el
basically
que
our
ve el
big
sector
brother, as we
privado,
call
las
them.
grandes
They are in charge
corporaciones,
of
proyectos de
large
impacto
corporations, private
de
sector,
gran escala.
large scale
Y está
impact.
BitLab,
And then
que es
we
el que
have
vengo a
IDB Lab,
representar
the
hoy
one
y a
I am
contarles un poquito más
representing
a
here
detalle.
today.
BitLab es
IDB Lab
el hub de
is the
innovación del
innovation
Banco
hub
Interamericano de
at the
Desarrollo.
Inter-American Development
Es
Bank.
el brazo de Venture
The
Capital y de
venture capital
inversión
and
del banco.
investment
Es un
branch
un
of the
actor
bank,
único
a
entre bancos
unique actor among
multilaterales que
multilateral
trabaja
banks
en el
that
ecosistema
work
de
in the
innovación desde
innovation
distintos
ecosystem
ángulos.
from different angles.
Trabajamos y buscamos
We
innovación disruptiva que nos ayude
look
a
for
catalizar
disruptive
impacto desde distintos ángulos.
technologies
Con eso
working
trabajamos
in
desde
different
etapas muy
angles
tempranas
ever since the early
del sector
phases
privado.
in the
Tenemos un
private sector.
apetito
We
de
have
riesgo único
a unique
que nos
risk
permite
appetite
trabajar
that
desde las
allows us
bases,
to
desde
work
los
from the
elementos
foundation,
habilitadores
from the
que
enabling
necesitan
elements that
distintos mercados
different
emergentes,
emerging
así como
markets
temas
need,
muy
as well as very
puntuales,
specific
capital,
matters such as capital,
conocimiento que
networking,
necesitan estas
the
startups
knowledge and
para ir
expertise the
creciendo en el
startups need to
ecosistema
grow within the
e ir
ecosystem
escalando.
and
Para
grow.
eso tenemos
And for
distintos
this, we have
instrumentos,
different
distintas maneras
instruments,
de
different
trabajar
ways of
desde
working,
lo que es el desarrollo del ecosistema,
developing the
apoyar
ecosystem,
temas de
support matters
infraestructura,
of
de networking,
infrastructure,
políticas
networking, public
públicas, crear
policies,
talento que
create
apoye
talent
estas
to support
innovaciones,
these
así como
innovations as
distintos
well as
instrumentos
different
para
instruments,
desde validación de
all the way from
mercado,
market
capital semilla,
validation, seed
hasta los instrumentos
capital, up
necesarios
to
para
the
ir escalando
necessary
estas
instruments
empresas.
to upscale
Y
these
asimismo,
businesses.
uno de los temas
And one
que nos
matter
interesa
that is
muchísimo
also of great
resaltar es
interest
que
to
al
highlight
interno del
is
mismo
that
banco
within the bank
tenemos
itself,
elementos que nos
we have
permiten por
elements
medio de
that allow
sinergias
us through
aportar
synergies
después
to
de
contribute
que estas
after
empresas, estas
these
startups lleguen a cierto
startups
punto.
reach
La
a
idea es
given
que tengan
point. The
continuidad
idea is for
dentro del
them to
banco
have
para
continuity
escalar,
within the
ya
bank
sea
to upscale either
con BitLab,
through
con
IDB
BitInvest,
Lab or
perdón, o con
IDB
BitBit.
Invest, excuse me, or with IDB
Un
itself.
poquito más a detalle
A bit more
de lo que nos
detail of
estaban consultando
what
y lo que
we
nos trae hoy
were
a la mesa.
have brought us
Tenemos
here
tres
to this table.
instrumentos para
We have three
trabajar.
instruments to work with.
La parte de
The
inversión.
on the
Tenemos
investment
inversión
side, we
directa,
have
que es
direct
el instrumento
investment,
más nuevo que
the
tenemos. Lo practicamos desde hace
direct
unos 3
equity. We
años
have been working on this for about 3
aproximadamente.
years now.
Tenemos
We
inversión en
have
fondos,
our investment in funds.
donde es el instrumento que hemos
This is the
practicado desde los
instrument we
últimos
have been
30 años.
practicing for the
Tenemos
last
muchísima
30
experiencia y
years. We
tenemos
have
un portafolio
significant
amplio.
experience, a broad
Y tenemos
portfolio.
también lo que es
We
deuda.
have debt
Entonces, la idea es
also.
ofrecer
So the idea is
instrumentos
to offer the different
con un amplio
instruments
rango que nos
with a
permitan
broader range
encontrar la manera de alinearnos a las
to best
distintas
find the way to
necesidades
align
del
us with the
ecosistema.
needs in the
Instrumentos
ecosystem.
y tesis que van evolucionando según lo
Instruments
que
and
sea necesario para el
theses
mercado.
that evolve
Empezando
according
con
to market
Direct
needs.
Equity
With
específicamente,
direct equity
trabajamos
specifically,
desde
we
SEED.
work
Esto es un programa nuevo que
from the
tenemos
seed.
específicamente para
This is a
ecosistemas
program we
nacientes
have
como
for
Centroamérica,
new
Caribe y ciertos
instruments
países de
in
la
Central
región,
America, the
donde aquí
Caribbean, and other
trabajamos
countries of the region. We work
tickets pequeños, pero
small
la tesis de
tickets.
Direct Equity
And
también
the
tiene
thesis of direct equity
posibilidad de
also has the
invertir hasta
possibility
Serie
to
B, que
invest
es
up
donde
to
llegamos a
Series
hacer
B,
sinergia y
where we
alineamiento con
develop
BidInvest.
synergies with
Entramos a rondas que van
IDB
desde los
Invest, and the
$500,000
rounds
hasta
cover
30
from
millones,
$500 to
y los
30
tickets
million.
varían desde
And the
$200,000
tickets
hasta 3
vary
millones o un poco
from
más, dependiendo de la
200,000
escala y la
to a
necesidad
million and a half, and depending on the
de
scale
la startup.
and the needs of the
Aquí
startup.
no entro muchísimo en
I'm not going
detalle.
to
En
go
general,
into
en la
great
tesis
detail,
tenemos
but in the
distintas
thesis we have
verticales de
different
impacto, agricultura y
vertical
capital natural,
impacts,
infraestructura
impact,
esencial,
natural
inclusión
impact,
financiera,
financial
salud,
inclusion,
educación,
health,
talento,
education, talent, However, what is most important for us is that the impact thesis be clear, that we know how to demonstrate that theory of change within the startups and within the economic model to upscale this. And here we are interested in three major lines: startups that have an impact on the foundation of the pyramid, the poor communities, and the area of population and climate, and even gender and others. These are examples of the startups we have invested to in IDB Lab. And going into funds now. As to funds, we seek three theses in the funds we want to invest in: regional funds with broad experience that try to take the innovative ecosystem models that are more developed, and they take them to the nascent organizations. And then in nascent ecosystems like the Caribbean and Central America, the funds are smaller in size. And basically, we support them from the beginning because they have managers with limited experience. And then we cover agriculture, education, health, and that are a bit more specialized, and therefore are emerging markets as funds in general. Here we work on tickets from 2 million to 10 million. Depending on the scale, the fund scale, minimum size is usually 20 million, although in emerging markets, these funds generally are much smaller, and we allow these to be between 10 million, around 10 million, and we try to not have more than 20%. We do not want to take space away from private capital or capital that is already there. All we want to do is provide support. Here we work with theses of funds that can invest all the way from pre-seed to Series B. There are no restrictions. The important thing is to focus these on a region and with a clear thesis of impact. Some examples of some funds we have in the region: as I said, we have invested more than 280 million over the last 30 years. We have more than 50 active funds currently. And through them, we have the fortune and the opportunity to support more than 900 startups in the region. And lastly, quickly, the debt thesis. We have tickets from 500,000 to 5 million in businesses that want to develop scalability within these elements of impact, so that they can bring to the table a scalable project aligned with matters of impact on the poor populations, improving gender diversity, or evolving up to more sustainable models. I perhaps will leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Carolina.
Thank you very much, Carolina.
Bueno, ahora vamos con Vladimir
Okay,
Valera de Activa
Vladimir
Cati. Vladimir, por
Valera
favor.
from Activa Cati.
Hello.
Vladimir.
Gracias, Mariana.
Thank you,
Muy buenos días a
Mariana.
todos
Good
y
morning,
todas. Un
everyone.
gusto
It is a
estar
pleasure
acá.
to be here.
Ok, ahí está la presentación. Bueno, muy bien. Nosotros no somos un fondo como
We are
tal,
not a fund
tampoco
as
somos
such.
precisamente
We are
una
not
incubadora,
really
somos
an
un
incubator
laboratorio de
either. We are
innovación y
innovation
emprendimiento.
and
Somos
a startup
parte
laboratory.
del Centro
We are
Agronómico
part of
Tropical de
this
Investigación y Enseñanza,
CATIE
que es
here in
una
Costa Rica,
institución
and
hermana
a sister
precisamente del ICA.
institution of
Nosotros
IICA, by
estamos
the way.
ubicados aquí
We are located
en Costa
here in
Rica, en
Costa Rica,
Turrialba.
in the
Para los que no son
city of
ticos,
Turrialba. For
esto queda
those that are not
aproximadamente como
Costa
hora y media de
Ricans,
acá.
that is about an hour
Y
and a half away from here.
nos dedicamos, el
And
CATI como tal, es
CATIE
una
as such
institución de
is
investigación,
a
de
research
docencia a nivel de
institute
posgrado,
and
en
teaching at the
temas
postgraduate
obviamente de
level in the
agricultura,
areas of
ganadería, bosques,
agriculture, livestock,
biodiversidad.
forests,
En
and
este sentido,
biodiversity.
entonces,
So in this sense,
Activa nace
Activa
como
rose
una necesidad
as
más del
one more
CATI
need
de
of
abordar
CATIE to
los desafíos
address
que
the
tiene el sector
challenges
agrícola
of the
a
agriculture
nivel de
sector
Latinoamérica.
within Latin America.
Somos un
We
laboratorio
are a laboratory
que apoya
that
emprendimientos, pero también
supports
vinculados obviamente a la
startups, but also
innovación, la
linked to
innovación que nace
innovation,
tanto
innovation that
dentro de nuestra
arises both
institución
within
como
our
la innovación
institution as
de
well
los
as the
propios
innovation
productores, de los
of the
propios actores
producers
del
or
campo.
actors themselves in the field.
Además de eso, pues
Aside from that,
apoyamos a que las
we
empresas
support
y
so
los
that
emprendimientos que
businesses and
trabajan con
startups
nosotros,
that
pues
work with
puedan
us
precisamente
can
acceder a
have
estos
access
inversiones,
to
a
these
estas rondas de
investments,
inversión
to
de
this
impacto,
round of impact
para los cuales
investment,
muchas veces no
for
están
which
preparados.
oftentimes they are
Entonces
not
nosotros
prepared.
trabajamos
So
precisamente un
we
enfoque de
precisely work
pre-seed
on a
para
pre-seed
apoyar la inversión
approach
y la
to
preparación
support
de esto. Y
the
además,
preparation of all of
como
this. And additionally,
algo natural del
as
CATIE es
something
que siempre
natural in
estamos
CATIE,
investigando y
we're
tratamos
also
de innovar
doing
para el
always doing
desarrollo
research
de
and try
mejores
to
modelos de
innovate and
negocio.
develop
Casualmente
better
mañana
business models.
al mediodía, a las
Tomorrow
11,
noon
tenemos un
at
taller
11 o'clock, we
específico
have a
donde
specific
vamos a
workshop where we
presentar
will
un
present
nuevo lienzo de
a
negocios
new
sostenibles donde vinculamos
a list
precisamente
of sustainable businesses where we link
en la propuesta de valor
in
los
the value
elementos
proposition, we
destacables
have a
de
series of
sostenibilidad, tanto los aspectos
elements
ambientales,
of
sociales
the
y
social,
obviamente los aspectos económicos
environmental,
para
and
los cuales todos
economic
están
aspects
invitados.
that you are all invited to attend.
Específicamente nosotros venimos
We
trabajando
have
desde el
been
año
working ever since
2019 en
2019
el CATI como el
at
Laboratorio de
CATIE
Innovación y
as an
Emprendimiento, pero a
innovation
nivel de
and
Costa
startup
Rica
companies. But
específicamente
at
somos una
Costa
agencia
Rica, we
acreditada
are an
por el
agency
Sistema de Banca para
accredited by
Desarrollo
the
y
development
nosotros
banking
obviamente
system, and
trabajamos con los que
we
son
obviously work
emprendimientos
with
rurales
rural
porque
startups
hemos visto
because
la
we have
necesidad
seen the need
precisamente de muchos emprendimientos. Bueno, lo hemos
of
destacado
many
acá.
startups, and
Ayer
we have
preguntaba en qué
we have
sector
highlighted this. Yesterday, we heard
la
the question
inteligencia
about
artificial se
where
estaba
artificial
implementando
intelligence was
y
being
nadie indicó el
implemented, and
sector
nobody
agrícola.
mentioned the
Pues
agriculture
es un
sector.
pequeño
Well,
ejemplo de las
this is an
necesidades del sector
example of the
rural.
needs in the rural sector.
El sector rural
The rural
obviamente los
sector
temas que
obviously
son comunes para el CATI, agricultura,
contains matters of
ganadería, el tema de
agriculture,
manejo
livestock,
forestal,
forestry management,
agroindustria.
agro-industry. These are
Buscamos
basic
a
to
que
CATIE.
nuestras
And we
empresas y
want our
emprendimientos
businesses
implementen como
and
actividades clave
startups
soluciones basadas en
implement
naturaleza que
nature-based
contribuyan a la
solutions that
descarbonización
contribute to
y al manejo
decarbonization and to the
responsable de los
responsible
recursos
management of
fitogenéticos y de
phytogenetic
la biodiversidad en
resources
general.
and diversity at
Tenemos un
large.
enfoque de género e
We
inclusión
have a
muy
gender and
interesante
inclusion approach,
y
very interesting,
enmarcados en las
within the
políticas de
framework
descarbonización.
of decarbonization
Desde el
policies.
2021,
Ever since
pues ya hemos
2021,
hecho más de
we
12
have
convocatorias con
convened
casi
12 different
200 emprendimientos. En este momento
activities, more
estamos
than
apoyando 80
200
más. Es decir, que a final de año
startups,
vamos a llegar
and by
casi
the end of
a
the year,
300 emprendimientos.
we
Y desde
will
el año
reach
pasado
almost a total of
comenzamos
300.
un nuevo
We
programa que
started a
tiene
new
que ver con
program last year
aceleración,
that has to
donde
do with
estamos brindando unos
acceleration,
tickets de
where we are
inversión de
offering investment
$30,000.
tickets of $30,000.
Nada más para Costa Rica hemos
Just for
apalancado
Costa
como
Rica,
capital
we have
semilla no
leveraged
reembolsable
as
más de 5
non-reimbursable
millones
seed capital
de
more than
dólares.
$5 million US.
Algo que nos emociona es
Something
que
that
el
excites us is that
51% de las personas
51% of the
que han
people
hecho un contrato,
that
porque
have
este es
signed
capital
a
no
contract
reembolsable,
with
pero
this,
que está
because this is
sujeto a un plan de
non-reimbursable
inversión
fund, but subject
con
to
la
an
firma de un
investment plan
contrato.
by
El
signing an agreement.
51% de
And
estas personas que han
51%
firmado
of the people
contrato
that
con
have
nosotros
signed
son
these
mujeres,
contracts
lo
with us
cual a
are
nosotros
women,
nos llena de mucha
something that makes
satisfacción.
us very
Pero quiero decir
satisfied.
que en todas las empresas y
And in all
emprendimientos el rol de
businesses
la
and
mujer es
startups,
muy
the role of
importante
women
en
is
diferentes
very
puestos.
important and
Y hemos
different at different
capacitado a
levels.
más
And
de
we have
3,000
trained
personas,
more
no
than
solamente en Costa
3,000
Rica,
people, not
sino a
only here in
nivel de
Costa
la
Rica,
región, a
but
nivel de
throughout the
Latinoamérica,
region, throughout
precisamente
Latin
porque el
America,
CATI
because
es un
CATIE
centro
is an
internacional.
international center.
Nuestra tesis de inversión,
Our
para
investment
ajustarnos
thesis,
al tiempo,
precisely to meet our time
es
limit,
que nosotros
is
sí
that
estamos
we
conscientes
are
y
aware
lo hemos probado
and we have
que
proven
invertir en
that
el sector
investing
rural
in the rural
en temas de
sector in
sostenibilidad
areas of
reditúa. Por
sustainability
eso,
has a
invertir en emprendimientos
return. That is
rurales
why
verdes, es decir, que no solamente
investing
vean la
in green
productividad y la
rural
rentabilidad,
startups,
sino también cómo pueden generar
we can
beneficios
help them
sociales a
generate
lo
social
colectivo
benefits
y
at the
también
collective
beneficios
level and
ambientales
environmental
reditúa.
benefits.
Entonces
And this
reditúa
pays
tanto a
off.
los
It
fondos que
pays off
trabajan con
both for the
nosotros como
funds
a
that work
los
with us
mismos
as
estados
well
que
as
están
for the
dispuestos
states that are
a
willing
confiar en
to
ActivaCATIE
trust
para
in
apoyar
Activa
cada vez
Cate to
mayores
support
emprendimientos.
more and more
Entonces, eso es un poco la
startups.
información.
That is
Muchas gracias.
basically our information. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Vladimir. Ahora vamos a escuchar de
Thank you
José
very much.
Enciso de
And now
Incofin.
we will hear from Jose Pico from Incofin.
Muy buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everyone.
Mi nombre es José Enciso.
Jose
Yo soy
Enciso
director
is my name,
regional
Regional
de
Director
Incofin Investment
of
Management.
Incofin
Muchas
Investment
gracias, Erika,
Management.
por la
Thank you, Erika,
invitación.
for the invitation.
Les cuento un poco
Let
qué
me
es
tell you a
Incofin
bit what
Investment Management.
Incofin
Nosotros
Investment Management
somos
is
un
all
gestor
about.
de
We
fondos
are a fund manager
que está basado en Bélgica.
based in
Nuestra
Belgium.
oficina
Our
principal está
head
basada
office
en la ciudad de Amberes.
is in
Tenemos hoy en día 8 fondos que están activos.
in that country. We have been investing in the area of impact for several years. We have $1.1 billion of assets under management. Private equity. We become partners of the company, and our product represents about 80%, and equity is 20%. We are investing today in three main sectors, obviously related to sustainable food, potable water, and sustainable partnerships. Our offices are in different developing areas of the world, as you can see on the slide here. The regional office for Latin America is in Bogota, Colombia. And from there, we can make investments all the way from Mexico to the Patagonian region. In Africa, we have an office. In Kenya and India, we have 4 offices. You just imagine the volume of investment in the area of Asia, particularly India and in Belgium. We have a team in charge of investing in Central Asia and Eastern Europe. What is an impact investment? Where are we in this investment ecosystem? Let me begin by defining what impact investment is not. Impact investment is not responsible investment aligned with the ESG criteria. There are many investors today, or that have the ESG criteria as critical elements to assess potential investments. That is very good, and that is a good step as compared to what investments were like in previous years, but that is really not impact. Impact is a bit beyond that. And it is not philanthropy either, just giving out resources free of charge. No, it must be profitable. Obviously, we do have investors in our funds that do require minimum profitability, so we are in competition with other funds. And this takes us to the world of impact. The world of impact basically is to be able to have, with these companies, have a social or environmental impact that can be measured. And this is also based on the mindset of the business, the startup. In our first discussion with that person, we understand if there will be an impact or not, because the startup person says why they created the company, their objectives, and then we measure whether mentally they do have that mindset of impact. The impact first is basically going a bit beyond that and sacrifice a bit more profitability to truly be aligned with the impact objectives. However, in most of our funds, the impact and profitability are the two key areas that must be addressed with the same importance. Where are we within the different phases of these businesses? We are not in the early phases. I must differ with my colleagues. We are a bit more downstream within these businesses. We are in the growth level. They start with pre-seed, seed, Series A, Series B. We are around the Series B. What does this mean? That we come into the businesses when the concept has already been proven, when go-to-market has already been proven, when the business is profitable, when it has a minimum level of sales, when the corporate governance is relatively well organized. And there, we help accelerate the growth of that business. That would be like the next step. And with my colleagues here, we begin to oftentimes buy the shares in their effort. This must be important for us. There are many startups, there are many venture funds, and they're early phases, but you have to project this into the future, not just focus on the early phases. No, think of what will happen later. And in this sector, we have seen a significant gap for early phase funds for ventures to move forward. And this is where we want to be positioned.
A little bit about sectors. We're talking about the issue of financial inclusion. This topic was the one that started this impact funds, microfinances, financial institutions, and regards to Latin America. And about 4 years ago, we entered the drinking water area. We launched together with the Aaron Group, Danone, a private capital, trying to address the most vulnerable populations. And so when we started with this fund, we started in microfinances, but very quickly we started investing in the agricultural sector, in production. The idea was to improve the conditions of the small producer. Little by little, we started developing new funds based on that. We did one, the first trade access fund, or fair trade access fund. The startups is one of the main investments there. These are based on exporters so that they can provide favorable conditions to small producers, coffee producers. 2 years ago, we launched a new fund based on nutrition in Africa. Basically, we're trying to improve nutrition in sub-Saharan Africa. And we realize that there's lots of potential and want to do more. And where do we see the potential? Well, basically, we see it in the AgTech area. We want to do a Latin American regional fund that is investing only in AgTech. For this, we have started making contacts, discussing with people. And as Caroline was saying, one of the objectives of BitLab is to bring more financing from the private sector because we believe that the entrepreneurs who are here, and my colleagues know this too, one of the main problems we have for this sector is the lack of private financing. And the idea of IDB was to invite other players to strengthen this investment. And we got the idea and we're developing with BitLab a digital agriculture project where we're giving $1.4 million of 40 packages of technical assistance and 6 entities in growth, a bit more mature, and 8 entities in a startup, so an early stage. And they are the grants that we want to provide today. We would like to invest mainly in debt in companies that are in serious condition. And we want to do all the contacts to develop this fund that I mentioned, which I believe should be the way out for some of the ventures here.
Gracias, José. Bueno,
Thank you, Jose.
ahora nos va a compartir un poquito
And now Ariadne
Ventures.
will be talking to us from SP Ventures.
Muchísimas gracias por la
Well, thank you very
invitación.
much for the
Es muy
invitation.
feliz
I'm
estar
very
aquí
happy to
nuevamente
be
con
here with
ustedes.
all of you
Muchas
again.
gracias. Son
Thank you.
realmente este tipo de eventos
It's
son los
this
que
type of
están
events
desarrollando
that
el
are
ecosistema en
developing the
Latinoamérica,
ecosystem
entonces
in
son
Latin America,
absolutamente
so they are
relevantes.
definitely
Muchísimas
relevant.
gracias
Thank
ahí
you
por
so
el
much
trabajo.
for your work.
SP Ventures, nosotros somos un
SP
fondo
Ventures,
que
we
inició
are
en
a fund that
Brasil
started in
hace
Brazil
aproximadamente
about
14
14
años,
years ago,
cuando prácticamente
when
la industria de venture
practically
capital no
the venture
necesariamente
capital
era una
industry
industria
was
muy
not a
conocida
well-known
en nuestra
industry in
región.
our
Entonces,
region.
tienen que entender que
So you need
o
to
sea, venture
understand
capital
that
es
venture
reciente
capital is
específicamente
recent,
en Latinoamérica y
specifically in
nosotros fuimos
Latin
uno de los
America, and we
pioneros
were one of the
específicamente que
pioneers
empezamos a
who
trabajar
started
con
working
inversiones.
with
Muy feliz de
investments.
tener en la
We are very
mesa
happy to have at
a
this
Mariana,
table
que
Mariana.
tuvimos la honra
We
de
had the
ser
honor
inversionistas
of
de Mari
being Maris
desde muy
Investments
temprano,
at a very
también con
early
Carol,
stage,
que
and
son
with Carol as
inversionistas
well,
de nuestro
who are
fondo.
investments
Y
of
esto
our
ha
fund,
sido
investors of our
alrededor
fund,
de muchos
and
años que se ha
this
ido,
has taken
gestando.
place for several years
Nosotros
now.
nacimos
We
específicamente con la
were
idea
born
de
with the idea
invertir
to
principalmente en
invest
emprendedores que estén
in
trabajando en la transformación de los
those businesses
sistemas
that are
agrícolas de
thinking about
Latinoamérica.
transforming
¿Por qué
these agricultural
específicamente
systems of
este
Latin
sector?
America.
Este
And why
sector
specifically
entendemos
this
que es uno
sector?
de
Well,
los
we
más
think this sector
resilientes.
is one of the
Entonces,
most
cuando vemos desde
resilient
el
ones.
punto de
So
vista de
when we
impacto,
see in
lo
terms
que
of
sea que está
impact
generado, sin
that
duda
has been generated,
es uno de
we
los
definitely believe
principales
it's one of
eh,
the
de las principales fuentes
main
de
sources
inversión
of
a nivel
investment
global y de lo que más
globally,
tiene específicamente
and
impacto en la
specifically that
región.
has
Pero
the greatest impact in the
adicionalmente,
region.
como
So
asset class,
as asset
es también
class, it is
absolutamente
also
relevante,
a
¿sí?
relevant group as
Precisamente
well.
por la cuestión
And
de
that is also
la
because
resiliencia
of
que
the
existe el sector
resilience that the
frente
sector
a
has
desafíos
when
globales, la
faced with
agricultura no
global
para.
challenges. Agriculture never stops. That's a fact. So it is very important to say that. We were born in Brazil as one of these centers, but this can be taken to the Latin American region. We have 34% of GDP comes from agriculture, but we always talk about the capacity of Latin America of being exporter of food. When we were importers, we now have the capacity of being exporters, and that's one of the main ones. But this was based on the technology that has been placed in the in the sector. So we, as SP Ventures, our objective is not only to maintain the experts of food, but also to be experts of technology, exporters of technology. So this is our main thesis in our fund. We have a very experienced group in the region. If we put all the people together who works in the team, we are talking about more than 100 years of experience in investments in this sector, because we understand that the experience and this specificity thing is what makes us have investors and funds and entrepreneurs that come to our high caliber fund. And our history, well, it starts in 2010 when we started investing in what existed in the sector. In 2014, 2015, we started doing our first investment in the agricultural sector, and we never turned back. Since then, we wanted to focus on this sector ever since, and that's where we have stayed. Today, we are launching our third fund. We already had a fund. The number one was 100 million reals 6 years ago. Then we launched our second fund. It was a $58 million fund. And now we are deploying one, out of which we did the first closing of $22 million. And because right now it's $58 million. So this is an asset that we are doing investments in the region. Normally we invest between SIF and Series A tickets from $1 to $2 million. So it is fantastic to hear that there are different synergies at the table here. Our main thesis of investment have always been fintech. We are one of the funds that has the largest number of fintech companies in the region. Why? Because we understand that fintech is definitely what also helps the banking for the adoption of many of the technology in the region. So we're one of the main funds to invest in fintech. Biologicals is also another group that we are interested in. Biologicals, specifically, we are one of the regions that uses the largest number of biologicals globally. We have transformed ourselves at a global level. And so we are going to continue investing in this thesis. And we understand that this is the greatest legacy of Latin America. That is to strengthen and provide biologicals globally and digital agriculture. Why digital agriculture? Because that's what strengthens the efficiency and the climate changes that are happening worldwide. Definitely leave this sector as a resilient one. So we have invested in about 40 companies throughout these years. We have some big examples, and AgroSmart is one of them. As I was saying, main sectors, even though we work with the entire chain, we are focused in fintechs, biologicals, and everything that has to do with efficiencies. Within our CELPIs, and this is something that differentiates us, and we love that, is that we have a strength in commercial agriculture. We have some agribusinesses. We have Syngenta, SMC, Fariseo, Bunge, and on the other end, we have the development funds. So this brings a very interesting balance. It's not only commercial, which of course we have a good strength there for the fund, but also the development of different regions. We invest from Mexico to Argentina, and the idea is to have IBIFC in our fund, and that allows us definitely to support regions in which development of these ecosystems is still ongoing or in diapers. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much, and let's continue. Thank you, Ariadne. And we have Teresita from EdLab. Can you hear us? Teresita from the EdLab. Can you hear us? There you go. We can see you now. Yes, thank you. Nice to hear you. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Yes. It is a great pleasure to be with all of you today here. I'm very excited to be able to be part of this event once again that is consolidated time after time, year after year. It's a great pleasure to be part of the Digital Agriculture Week and see how all these colleagues, dear colleagues, that we have shared the development of the ecosystem in Latin America, such as IBLAB, Steve Ventures, and Steve Ventures. We love everybody, and it is great to be able to be sharing with all of you the development of AdTech in FeedLatam. So it is a great pleasure to be here, even if it's only online. Today I have part of the team, Rodrigo Carrera, who is based in Brazil, and Karina Diaz, who is based in Mexico. And those in charge of doing the scouting for startups of high value in Latin America that we're investing in. To tell you about GeoLab, we are in a seed capital fund. We use the GeoLab Latam is the agri-food tech venture capital firm with the largest presence and experience across Latin America, investing in high impact companies in the sector, in the agri-food sector. We have a track record of 3 funds. We have invested in Latin America, throughout Latin America. We have investments in 7 countries: Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, Argentina, Colombia, Peru, and Mexico. We also have an active portfolio of 30 companies, more than 54 million assets under management, 800 plus portfolio companies employees directly, and 124 million capital raised by portfolio companies. We also have our 3 funds have been based on $2.7 million invested capital in 2017. This is a fund. It is an accelerator fund. We have a 3.3 million investment fund that is launched and invested, and we have in 2022 we did a $48 million fund launched and investing and we are investing in companies throughout Latin America. So just so you to have a context of how this investors pools are developed, we are considered a relaunching platform that has as a niche connecting investors from the sector with startups that are developing also innovation and technology within the sector. Within our pool of startups, we have startups with a climate tech, ag tech, in-tech, food tech profile. And in our investors, we have pharma-centric. We are also want to add value and push everything that has to do with digitalization of field. And that's why we have different companies that trust us, that support the startups. We also have a pool of investors that are investing in farmers and buying from farmers, and they are supporting our investment thesis. Our value proposition is summarized at 3 levels. We have a global visibility through the GeoLab group, which is GeoLab group that works in Asia Pacific, Latin America, Europe, and Latin America, North America, and Latin America. We are a 12-person team located in 5 different offices from Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Mexico, and United States. And from there, we operate for this venture capital for the entire region. We try to be close to our entrepreneurs, and we always try to be in touch with whatever is happening in the production nuclei. Out of the 30 companies that we have invested in, more than 15 of them are in different cities in Latin America, and most of them are not in capital cities. This is because we want to go to the production places and see where most technology and the greatest value is to be added. But we also have a ecosystem capillarity with top local innovation hub partners. Trying to develop the ecosystem. We have very strong partnerships in Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Central America, Mexico. And from there, we try to strengthen our portfolio. And so thank you very much. It was a great pleasure to be here. And now we can go into the Q&A session.
Muchas gracias, Teresita. Bueno, me
Thank you
encanta
very
ver que en
much,
esta mesa
Teresita. I'm
tenemos
so
cuando
glad to
pensamos
see
en
that at
capital
this
para
table, when we
emprendedor,
think
todo no es
about
nada,
entrepreneur
empezando por los fondos
capital,
no
a
reembolsables,
very
o sea, los
different
grants
thing
que
is we have the
presentaron
grants
tanto
and
Activa Cac y
non-reimbursable
Equatelbit Lab,
investments, like
pasan del
what
capital semilla
IDB told
hasta
us,
llegar al
seed
private
capital,
equity.
and
También me
to
encantó
do the good
escuchar
private equity.
lo que,
It's
lo que nos dijo
also nice
José,
to
que
see
cuando
what
hablamos de
Jose
incrementos de
mentioned, that when we
impacto,
talk about
la
impact
intención importa.
investments,
Muchos de nuestros
im-
productos sí van a
this it
tener
matters. Many of our
impacto como
products
una
will have an impact
consecuencia,
as a
pero es muy
consequence,
distinto de
but
cuando
it's
un
very
emprendedor
different
lo crea
from
por
one
esta
entrepreneur
razón.
creates
Y
it
no solo tiene
based
la
on that, and
intención,
only
pero
not
también
only
logra
to have the
medir
intent, but they manage
el
to measure
resultado y el
the
impacto.
result, the
También
outcome,
me
and the
llamó la
impact.
atención y que creo que
And
muchas
something that
veces
also
pasa
caught my
despercebido por
attention and that is
emprendedores, que
usually not
los
seen
fondos no
is
son
that
solamente
funds are
fuente de
not
capital,
only
sino que
source
fuente de
of capital,
oportunidades
but source of,
comerciales. Varios de
business
ellos tienen
opportunities.
LPs, que
Many of
son
them have
compañías que
LPs that are
actúan en
companies
agro, y
that
también
act
inversiones como
in the
emprendimientos
agricultural
rurales, en
sector, and
agricultores
also
directamente,
those who
y que pueden
work
ser
with farmers
clientes de sus
directly, or they may
productos
be
o al menos
customers
un
of your
canal de
products, or at
distribución.
least a
Así que
distribution
muchas
channel.
gracias.
So
Tenemos
thank you
tiempo
very
para
much. We have
una
time for
pregunta
one
nomás y
question
vamos
only
cortos de
because
tiempo.
we're running
Mario
short of
levantó muy
time.
rápido la mano. Va,
So
Mario.
somebody raised his hand very quickly. Mario? I had this question prepared from Chile. So thank you very much for your presentations. They were very good. According to a report by CB Insights, there are 890 funds, but in Latin America there are only 64. We're talking about 30 times here more in the US. The presence of diamonds is 0.2%. So why do you think this is happening? Why do you think we should do not only the funds, the startups, and the ecosystem to shorten this gap? I'm going to start specifically because that connects with what I have said. Venture capital industry started back in the 50s. From the standpoint of history, that definitely has an impact. In Latin America, we started seeing this sector, venture capital about 20 years ago. So there is a difference, but that does not mean, and that has not limited us in terms of the size and the impact that these funds have had, specifically in Latin America. And these are organizations such as IDB, IFC, have become stronger to provide an evolution in the region. So something important that I wanted to say, and I think makes sense here, is that in previous years, maybe several years ago, maybe 5 years ago, the venture capital sector has been in constant tension. The investments have been reduced in different sectors in Latin America, and particularly in the agricultural sector. It's been one of the few where we've seen growth because of all the tension with regards to climate and everything. there's been
cada vez más
more
interés
funds, more
específicamente
interest,
en invertir en esta
particularly to
región.
invest in the
Entonces,
region.
desde el punto de vista,
So
todo es relativo.
everything
Sí,
is
somos
relative.
fondos
We
porque tiene una
are
cuestión de
funds.
historia, pero desde el punto de vista de Latinoamérica,
We,
agro
because
ha ido
historically
aumentando
we
cada
started
vez
later,
más y
but
este año
the
no ha sido la
agriculture
diferencia.
center, the
Ese es un
agricultural
poco
sector
mi
has been
visión.
growing, and this year has not been the exception. That's my perspective.
A ver, mi visión, sin ser VC,
Without
pero básicamente viendo un poco hacia el sector de inversiones, ¿qué se
looking at
podría hacer?
looking at
Yo
basically at the
veo desde el
investments,
punto de vista
I think
de los fondos
that
y
the
los
funds
emprendedores mostrar
and
resultados. Eso
entrepreneurs
es
want
clave.
to show
O sea, los
results.
LPs,
The
cuando empiecen
MPs,
a ver que hay cosas
at the
interesantes
moment
por
they
hacer,
see
que se
that there are
puede
interesting
generar
things to be done,
rentabilidad, que se puede
that
generar
profitability can be
impacto,
generated, that
van a
impact can be
empezar
generated,
a
will
atraerse más.
start
Por darles un
ju-
ejemplo, en Colombia
appearing
los
more.
fondos
In
de
Colombia, for
pensiones
example, the pension
invierten en
funds
VCs de Estados
invest in
Unidos, no
VCs
invierten en
from
los
the United
VCs
States. They
locales.
don't
Y
invest
eso
in the
es
local
increíble realmente.
VCs. That's
Y del
incredible,
otro
really.
lado creo que tiene que haber
And the
política
other thing
pública,
has to
¿no?
do with
Y ahí
public
tenemos todos
policy.
que hacer como
And we
fondos y
all
como
then have
gestores
to be
un lobby
managers and
bastante
we have to
fuerte.
do
Entonces, todos sabemos que no
strong
son los
lobby.
países más fáciles del
We know that
mundo,
these are
la
not the
región
easiest
es
countries.
complicada,
The region is
pero
complicated,
sí tiene que haber mucho
but
lobby
we
para
do need to do
justamente
lots of
mejorar en
lobbying
términos de
in
política
order to
pública y
improve the
poder
public
empujar
policy and
todo
push
el ecosistema de
the
inversión.
investment ecosystem. I would only add one more point because I agree with my colleagues on what they have said. The comparison is complicated because, as Ariadne was saying, we started decades later, but within the same region, there are ecosystems that are moving faster. So we need to learn from them, take the knowledge they have gathered, and bring it to other newer ecosystems within the region. The case of Brazil, Mexico, Chile, Argentina. Try not to see at each other in isolation. So this we need to look at these more developed markets and try to move along forward together and try to emulate those good outcomes and follow their process. In terms of macroeconomic, political issues also that will come and will have their impact. But as a region, we need to work together and keep this pathway that we're following right now. Just to add one more point, I agree with what has been said with regards to the investment ecosystem, and it requires different players to support its development. It's an issue of culture slash training of producers and entrepreneurs with regards to accessing different financing pathways. In our region, when we think about financing, usually people just think of debt, traditional debt in the bank, and I don't look other financial pathways versus the public in North America who are more used to having access to other financing instruments beyond debt. So yes, it's a matter of training. We need to learn as a society how to change that. We need to stop seeing debt as something evil because if or we need to stop demonizing debt. Debt is just a tool for financing.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Ya estouramos el tiempo.
So
Creo
we
que hay un
ran out
grupo
of
después
time.
que va a hablar
I
del
believe there's another
ecosistema, de
group that
las
is going to be
AgTechs, de cómo
talking
el
about
ICA puede
AgTechs, the
colaborar en una
ecosystem, and how
macroaceleración.
ICA can
Y seguramente
collaborate.
ese es un
And
tema que
probably
debe
that's
ser
a topic
discutido
that it
en
needs
los
to be
distintos grupos. Así que
discussed
muchas
within
gracias. Y ahora le
each
damos
group.
Paula Amador
And
de
so
Endeavor
now we're going to
para
give
facilitar el
the
speed dating.
floor
Gracias.
to Paula Amador from Endeavor, who will facilitate the speed dating.
Mientras viene Paula y nos organizamos, repito
While
la
Paula
dinámica, nos
comes,
quedamos en sala solamente